あ、ここいるんだ。
本当？見えないでしょ？どこにいるのかな？見えないよ。What's good, Internet? It is March 20th, 2017, and you are listening to Waypoint Radio, episode 49.
Yeah.
We're almost to episode 50. We're coming to you live from Lobby 1, Vice HQ, like always, and my notes here say, Happy St. Patrick's Day, be safe out there.
Well, you know, there was St. Joseph's Day also yesterday. I hope that the 3 people listening to this from Rhode Island get that and eat a Zeppola.
What? They do what?
Eat a Zeppola.
What? What'd you call me?
I called a Zeppola is a lovely thing.
Well, tell me about a Zeppola.
It's a fluffy pastry. It's
Okay.
an Italian. So St. Joseph's Day is an Italian holiday, like St. Patrick's
There's another
Day.
one, right?
I'm sure that there's a lot of Saints' Days, but this is the one where if you're a Rhode Islander of Italian descent,
yes,
you eat a delicious pastry called a Zeppola, which is a sort of like a delicious cream puff.
Gotcha.
A sweet cream puff.
Yeah, I've done this.
They're really good.
My stepfather's Italian.
Okay, so there you go.
Joey D.
Joey D is a perfect
D. Dominicius.
Jersey
Was his
Italian.
last name. So yeah, Jersey Italian, Atlantic City.
Perfect.
Lots of pastries.
Delicious pastries. Wonderful
Delicious
manja
sandwiches.
family,
Yeah,
you know.
Big Sunday dinners.
Oh, perfect.
That's the thing is, like, here, let me tell you something about having parents who got divorced and then remarried. I got every type of possible big Sunday meal in America.
Oh, very good.
I like big black family Sunday meal.
Sure, yeah.
I got big Italian Sunday meal. I got big German. I got 2 different big German Sunday meals.
Oh, wow.
It's true.
2 different German big Sunday meals.
It's 2 different types completely.
Oh, man.
Very good. There's
That's
overlap.
amazing.
Also, Polish.
Oh, cool.
So
All right.
lots of pierogies.
There you go. You made out okay.
I did okay.
You know, that sounds really
I got
good.
all these people together once when I graduated college. We did like a big, like collegiate, like
big party.
Graduate.
Yeah.
I didn't walk. I didn't want to walk for graduation, and so I was like, okay, I don't want to walk, but I'll do a big party with every corner of my family.
Lots of family. Yeah.
And that was cool because
Sounds
those
pretty
people, none of
nice.
those people knew each other, and it was like, oh. There's some overlap here. So there's like, it was one of those moments of like, oh wow, like family. It turns out everybody just gives a fuck about family.
Everybody's just family here.
It just turns out people care about family. And you're a family to us, listeners.
Yeah.
And also you, Patrick.
Waypoint family. Patrick is here.
Patrick's here.
St. Patrick is here again.
I want a Zappola. Give me a Zappola.
Keep trying. What was it?
Yeah, I said St. Patrick is here again.
What's the name of the pastry?
Zeppola.
Zappola. Oh, there's like an E? Is it
plural,
Z-E
Zeppole.
or Z-A?
Zeppole.
Yeah.
Zeppole.
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Zeppola.
1 Zeppola, 2 Zeppole.
What's the plural of Zeppoli?
Yeah. Well, that's how you conjugate things in Italian.
Yeah, it is, yeah. Mhm.
Conjugate and or pluralize is the term I actually meant.
You meant pluralize.
It's cool.
How you guys doing? You can tell if you're
I'm
watching.
conjugating over here.
yeah.
It's Monday morning.
Oh.
And here's the one nice thing about this Monday morning. Speaking of pastries,
Yeah.
is I got an email this morning that said, and this is like let me just give you a little insight into behind the scenes at Vice
This
HQ
is a very
here.
Vice email.
This came in from Rosie, who is kind of like our office manager.
Ops manager, yeah.
Ops
Yeah.
manager. She says, we are launching 4-5 Coffee, a local roaster based in Queens, and all of our coffee machines today at both offices. There are croissants, muffins, and pastries set up in every kitchen for you to enjoy with your morning coffee, plus complimentary bags of coffee at the bar area. Oh, word? We can go get complimentary bags.
You can get
Ship
some
me a
complimentary
bag.
bags
Ship
to
me a bag of
launch in
coffee.
your own coffee
I'll
maker.
get you a bag of coffee.
Because all I got is Costco coffee over here.
God.
You know.
And it turns out, I just think, I'm not sure. You've both worked in offices
Yeah.
before. And I've in every office I've ever been in had the same arc with my coffee there, which is like, oh wow, free coffee! I forgot how much I love coffee. I'm gonna drink all this coffee. This coffee's pretty good. And then like a month in, you just kind of forget that you're getting free coffee, and you're just kind of drinking it, and it's just sludge, and it's in your body. And then, like 2 months in, you come to hate the coffee. It's like, this isn't my good coffee. This is bad work coffee. It has a weird taste.
Bad work coffee.
I just get so like familiar with all of the taste, with the taste profile of the
Yeah.
bean that
the bean itself.
I can taste it I can taste its worst qualities so clearly.
Sure,
So even if this coffee is actually worse than the coffee we had before, I'm not saying it is. Shout outs to 4 or 5 Coffee, whose coffee I'm drinking for free. Just the fact of it changing is like a breath of fresh air.
I think it's a psychological thing, for sure. Because it's sort of like if you're associating being tired and miserable with drinking the thing, and you're drinking it because you're like, I need to be awake right now. I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I think that might be what's happening. Because
Could be.
I kind of like the coffee here, and I've been here since October.
True.
And I've kind of, I like it. It's it was Blue Bottle coffee.
Which is fine.
Pretty good. Yeah. And now it's this 4-5 business, which is also pretty good.
I need to try all. There's 3 different kinds.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, you can definitely swap through. There's always been a few different blends that you can try.
Right.
So, you know, if you're having a little issue.
One of them, the old ones we had, was just called 3 Africans.
It sure was.
And I wanted to know which 3.
Which 3?
Because that changes a lot
It sure does.
about what that flavor profile is going to be.
Which 3 Africans?
That's a very vague description for a coffee flavor.
Three
Not
Africans.
4. Definitely not 4.
That's
Not
too
2.
many.
Not 2.
Too many Africans.
3.
Not 2. That's...
I'm going to drink this coffee, and here's what I want. I really want you both to talk to me about Nier, a game I have not put enough time into because I've been playing Mass Effect Andromeda.
Happy Nier Day. Happy Nier Day.
Near
Oh,
Day.
happy Nier Day. Is
It's
it out
St.
on
Near's
PC?
Day. It's St. Nina's Day.
It came out a couple of days, but it's close enough.
Okay, it's Nier Day in that you're going to now talk to us about Nier.
Sure.
Yeah.
Tell me about Nier.
Man, Nier is good shit, man. Mm-hmm. It's Nier is knocked Breath of the Wild. I will go back to Breath of the Wild, but it has taken over sort of as my daily game because I was kind of just scratching at it, and then it began to take some turns, and then I just had to keep knowing more about what's happening in this world. Like, you know, like they're Nier storytelling I find to be like fascinating, and it's nice to play Nier Automata, which is a game that is fun to play, and then also has just a really compelling world that essentially asks like a lot of big uncomfortable questions about like what's it like to be a robot. It turns out it's like sort of depressing, and these robots are working it out or trying to.
So you've beaten it once? You've ending?
This morning I finished I quote unquote finished the game, like the credits rolled, and then it informs you that there's ending A, and then the game does something really smart, which is that there's a note from the public relations staff from Square Enix. Like, it literally says, sincerely,
Good.
Square Enix PR, and it says, you know, like, dear player, thanks for playing Nier Automata. We encourage you to you know, load up your save and continue playing. We think you'll be surprised about what you find. It is not merely just playing the game a second time. And they kind of keep it vague, but they are clearly aware that like the average person might just finish the game, see the credits, and go, "Yep, you know, that's
Did it.
I've done it. I've seen it."
Yep.
And without getting into what actually happens when you load the game again, essentially there's a perspective shift that would fundamentally alter your understanding of the events that you went through in the first game, and I'm only about half an hour into that, so I don't have time to do a whole lot of repetition, so I'm curious to see how they avoid you just doing everything you did the first time a second time, but hey, you've got some different dialogue that gives you insight into the story. I'm not sure how they're handling it quite
One thing
yet.
I know from reading reviews and talking to people is it maintains the level at which you got to in side quests.
It does.
So, like, for instance, there's, like, the robot, like,
Parade?
karate master.
Oh, the Karate Master.
that one too.
There's a parade that I...
Right, but
yeah.
so, like, that karate master, I got it to a point in my... I'm only in my first playthrough. We should be clear. We're talking about Nier Automata, for people who have not... kept up on that. It is an action game that is co-developed by Platinum and Square Enix. Is that correct?
Yeah, yeah, he's the designer.
Yoko Taro
he's
is,
internal, yeah.
Right. And it is a wild action game, a character action game in the sense of like Bayonetta or something. And the one quest that we talked about, I think briefly a couple weeks ago, was like there was a karate master robot on the roof, and every time you fight him, he gets tougher. And so I got him to a point where I was like, I'm not going to fight this guy anymore.
But like let's contextualize this. Like calling him a karate robot master is maybe giving this man this robot man a little too much credit. Like he is just he's hanging out on a weird roof that's hard to get to, that requires a very specific set of jumps in order to even make it over there. And then when you do, like he's this goofy ass looking robot.
He's like a little robot man.
Like he looks like the construction of this robot is akin to a lot of these sort of like regular like cannon fodder robots that you find all throughout the world, like the kind of guy
like early 20th century Tinker Toys. Like they look like
that you would wind
them up and they just kind of, yes, exactly.
Some of them also resemble Big Hero 6 a little bit
totally.
in the sort of face and the body and the.
But then he gets tougher. And you beat him, and he's like, "Bring me 12 like metal,
give me some screws," and then I'm gonna. And then he just gets like more and more intimidating and like larger. I think I fought him 3 times and then had to leave because I almost wasn't that he was going to beat me as much as like I just couldn't do enough damage. There's like I'm going to be here for 30 minutes if I'm going to actually finish this. So I decided I would just come back. But
so I like that it saves your progress on those like.
So all my side quests are just going to carry. Oh, that's smart.
Yes,
because the actual main storyline is pretty short. Like if you were just to like kind of just run through it, you could probably do it in just a couple of hours. Like, and so I did a significant number of the side quests, with the exception of some that were just too high level for me the first time around.
Did either of you ever play the Way of the Samurai games?
I remember them. I don't know that I have played one.
I think that the series kind of gets away from itself a little bit at 3. I think that they're campy and fun even in the post 3, like 3 and 4. I don't know if 5 came out or not, but 1 and 2 are really exceptional and really underappreciated because they do something. This just sparked me. What you were just saying about the main story being short just sparked something in me, which is that in those games, you could sit down and beat that game in an afternoon. Way of the Samurai 1 especially, you could beat in 90 minutes. Like, the longest playthrough of that game was like 90 minutes. Way of the Samurai 2, I think the longest playthrough was 3 hours. But in both cases, there are like 18 to 20 endings or something.
Nice.
And you end up being, you're a wandering samurai who comes into a town that is, you're like, it's the Yojimbo story, right? Who's caught between 2 different factions, and which faction you side with and which characters you interact with and how you answer dialogue and blah, 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 ends up spiraling out into a bunch of different possible endings where you're unlocking weapons that power up between playthroughs and stuff like that. And it's a model I just wish we had more of in games. Like, to some degree, it's almost like an interactive version of In a Grove or Rashomon, the kind of like different perspective story of like it's a samurai story by Kudogawa that Kurosawa ended up shooting. That is like, all these people saw things a different way. And obviously, it's not exactly like that. Like there is no truth you're uncovering. There are just a bunch of different endings. But I really love that notion of like you can play through the main thing here in a brief amount of time, and what you get differently is all the different variation based on what you're doing, and I want to see more people play with that format.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see how that plays out in this game and like how that deviates, because it's a really interesting storytelling choice, and especially because my guess is it's going to dig deeper into the stuff that really drew me into Automata in the first place, which is like if you go back and we've talked about the weird complex mythology of Nier and how that links to Drakengard, but like you can thoroughly like, despite the fact that I have, maybe this will change with subsequent endings and there'll be more like links that are interesting, but like Nier and Drakengard's connection, like it has no bearing on your ability to like enjoy like the larger philosophical questions that are asked in Automata. Like Automata, like at its core is like asking a lot of questions. Like there are machines that were created by aliens that invaded Earth, and then Earth fled to the moon and is using what they call automatons, but they're just advanced machines that are
androids
that are they look like humans, but they have consciousness, they have emotions, although they are told to tamper them down, whereas the machines that are created by the aliens are more of like these like Tinker Toy sort of like, I don't know, 1920s 30s like sort of robot designs, and a lot what happen you discover through the course of the game, and this is not spoiling anything, this is like the core question of what's happening in Automata, is like even those robots that were created by the aliens developed their own form of consciousness, and like some are passive and don't want to fight the humans or the androids anymore. And so like how do you like deal with that, even though you're on a mission where you're supposed to like kill these people? or kill these, I say them as people because like a lot of the game
said it.
They have thoughts.
A lot of what the game does is
names.
establish like what does it actually mean, like is there anything unique to humanity, and what does it say about humanity's like robotic creations that develop their own form of consciousness in the form like of the visual form of humanity. Like for example, there are robots that and what I found super interesting that it explores in ways that I won't get into plot wise, like is that like all the both the your characters and other machines are connected to a larger network. And some machines decide to disconnect from the network. But if you disconnect from the network, if you die, then you can't be uploaded to the network and like re-downloaded and like put into another a body. And so like a lot of the like the questions it's asking is like, what does it mean to be alive in the the visage of a human, but not to have any of the limitations of humanity? And a lot of the robots start exploring what that means. Like, what if I disconnect from the network? Then death is a real thing. Like,
Right.
like if I am killed,
is that meaningful in some way?
Yeah.
right? Or what does that mean? And so like these are like these larger questions that like are really fascinating.
The
like
thing I love here is that it doesn't just fall into the same like tired, but innovative at the time, sort of like binaries that Blade Runner uses, and
Sure.
like things inspired by Blade Runner, and lots of other science fiction that does the kind of like where does a robot versus humanity, when is a thing, where is that split at, what makes a person? Like it does all of that stuff, but then it like subdivides it further, or it adds a little bit of nuance, and then also is just like filled with gut punches of just
Yes.
like. It doesn't necessarily philosophize and over intellectualize. It does a lot of that also, but on top of that, on top of doing the sort of like thematic deep dive, it also just spends time eliciting an emotion from you that then informs how you think about this stuff. Like Patrick, you messaged me, and I'll censor a little bit of this. I don't want to give a spoiler away. I was like, I got to the blank part of Nier this morning before work, and I was all set to tweet out a little video with a snarky tweet, but it mostly just bummed me out to watch the scene play out. So I got sad and moved on.
Yep.
Is that your experience?
That sounds like the Nier experience. So I had a very interesting and wonderful experience with Nier. I played last night. I played the sort of first section and a little bit past that into sort of the real sort of beginning of the game. And then my friend, who I was playing on her PS4, she's obsessed with this game. Friend of the show, Amanda Cosmos. You can shout her out.
I wrote a fanfic for us.
Wrote a fanfic for us, exactly. Waypoint writer, Amanda Cosmos. And then showed me late game stuff, late into her second route.
Okay.
And showed me pictures and showed me, sort of all sorts of stuff. And I was immediately sort of enamored with this. Not only sort of the style of the world, I love the costumes. I love how weird and individualized everyone is, even though they're supposed to be automatons. Like, that's fascinating to me, that core concept right there. And then all the little bits of story you get about the other characters. Like your operator 60 tells you all these weird things about people in the world, and that says so much about her, and it says so much about every little piece of this world. It just feels like this is a world of robots, and we're supposed to think of a world of robots in a particular way, as if everybody's a clone or everybody's, just a machine, quote unquote. But then there's so much individual style and individual detail to everything. Also, really love the music. But I was going to ask if you had gotten to a specific point.
the amusement park track, the vocals in that are
so good.
So good.
The Village.
The Village
is
is
maybe
really
my
great,
favorite
too.
music
I
in the
think
whole
for
game.
me, it was there is a moment in the amusement park where everything sort of swells. So I'm not going to get into specifics.
Sure.
But there's like, I love it when a game makes me go like, oh, this game's going to do this. Like I didn't know this game could do this. That's always a fantastic feeling, and is one of the reasons I love playing games so much. And so I'm glad that Nier seems to be filled with a bunch of them. Another thing that Nier can do is, so like you mentioned, Patrick, there are a bunch of endings. I think there's 5 main endings,
and then 26.
Routes.
Like there's little Easter egg endings too,
I found
which is amazing.
I found one Easter egg ending. If you don't want to hear this Easter egg ending, that's totally fine.
I want to know if it's the same one that
skip ahead
Amanda
by like
showed
40
me.
seconds or something. There's a thing that you can do in this game, which is called, you can self-destruct, which
Your
is,
black
I understand, right. Well, sorry, that might be a different thing. There's an option, or maybe that is the black box. I don't know. There's a thing in the options that lets you just self-destruct, and that doesn't kill you. I think that like does damage, like an AoE around you or something. I don't know, because the only time I ever used it was while I was on like the mother base, like the home station that you go back to.
you blew it up.
It blew it up.
shit.
It was an ending, and it came up, and it was like, it said like with a hole blown through the side of the space station, like everyone was sucked into space, and that was the end.
Everybody died.
And then credits start playing.
Yes.
And it takes you back to the home page, and it says like you've unlocked ending, H or whatever. And then you can load that save, and you're just like right back into the.
That's so good.
But it's so good. It's like such a goofy, fun thing that I'm.
There's
happy.
a lot of those
Yes.
that are really amusing, for sure.
So I'm excited to see. Did you see a different one?
Yes.
Okay, don't tell us.
I won't tell you. I won't
good?
tell you,
Was
but
it good?
it's really good.
Okay.
I want to just briefly say this. I really love when sci-fi does this. One of my favorite episodes of Star Trek Next Generation, it's Measure of a Man, Season 2.
good
It's sort
one.
of the personhood of Data is on trial, basically.
Yes.
And it's like a courtroom drama, but it's asking a lot of those big sci-fi questions. When a game can do Measure of a Man, basically, or sort of do like personhood and
yeah.
whether robots
What's
have
a person?
personhood,
Yeah.
but also do it in such a stylish and wild and sort of wacky way. Like the storyline of this game is wonderfully bananas in
Right.
certain ways. It makes me extremely happy.
The thing that I like, the thing that I kind of figured out a new way to talk about the thing I was trying to get at before, which is the thing that excites me because I love Measure of a Man, I like Blade Runner, I like stories about that question. What I really like about Nier is that it decentralizes the human as normal, or
Yes.
as the only arbiter of meaning. The thing with Measure of a Man, the thing with a lot of sci-fi stories about this, is that what they do is they say, how do we know that that thing is valuable? Is it a person?
How close is it to human?
Us,
Yeah.
Right. And what Nier starts to do, even in my first playthrough, is starts to draw doubt on whether or not we should be using human as the prime arbiter of value.
Yes.
It like moves away from that anthropocentric view of the world and says like, oh, actually, there's just a bunch of different types of meaning in the world, and sometimes appealing to trying to be like a human is really grotesque because like what we do is not like
It's not the best.
Organic
sometimes.
beings are kind of gross.
We're all
organic
nasty.
are kind of gross, and we like cut that out of our image of humanity, right? Like we do the Descartes model of like humanity is like more like an
Elevated,
angel. It's
yeah.
elevated. We're thoughtful, we're rational. And like, nah, you're kind of in the dirt fucking.
Yeah.
Like that's kind
You're
of what
doing
you're
a
doing.
sex. Yeah.
And that's okay, but like don't understand that there are lots of ways that you can find meaning. And so Nier seems to be digging into that stuff a lot. I really wish Mass Effect was.
Yeah.
If I can pivot briefly, now that I can talk more openly about my Mass Effect experience, I'm 30 hours in. The first time I think I liked this game, really, the first time that it like didn't feel, the first time that I raised an eyebrow and was like, oh, I'm curious about what's happening here, was like 25 hours in, which is
Yeah.
over a day of my human life. Now, I don't know about my robot
human life,
My
yes.
robot life could go on
Give it all the value.
I don't know how days
You know.
work in the future, but 25 hours before I hit a quest, and the thing that worries me is it's a quest that at least one reviewer, I think the Eurogamer, I don't remember who it was over at Eurogamer, but they shouted out that specific quest too in a way that made me feel like there wasn't going to be much more
like that's
that.
the one.
Yeah. And it reminded me a lot, and it reminded the Eurogamer reviewer also of Vermeer, the planet I mistakenly called Noveria on Friday's podcast. May I
You
culpa?
son of a.
I'm
my
terrible.
God.
Believe it.
Noveria is the snow-covered, like cyberpunk
It's
corporate
where there's a
haven.
base.
You know, I was going to
Yeah.
correct you, but I just wanted
know.
you to go out there on your own and just have to learn a
Vermeer,
lesson.
I know. Vermeer is the one that has the genophage cure, and I'm sorry, fans, everyone. But this one quest line in Mass Effect is the first one that was like, oh wow, this has shades of Vermeer. This is like a hard decision about something in the world. Like there are stakes, and like literally, I don't think I've made a single choice before that felt like it had stakes before 25 hours in. And the other thing is that there also didn't seem like there's a lot of choices in terms of low stakes stuff that is about priority. So like
Yeah.
one of the things I like a lot about so the high stakes choice that happens there is about priority. It's like, do I want to do A or B? I guess there's one earlier one on the first planet you go to that's similarly like, are you like military or do you like a science? Which one are you?
Are you a science?
Are you a science or are you a military? Then
Common
later there's-
sci-fi question. It's a trope.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
And then later there's a similar sort of like, there's a similar thing. I'm not going to get into what the question is. But at the broad scale, one of the things that I hate to keep trying to ground my feelings about Mass Effect Andromeda in previous Mass Effect games, but I feel like I have to. is that when I open up the map for Mass Effect or Mass Effect 2 or Mass Effect 3, I get to look at a list of cool things I want to do and places I want to go and say, like, I'm going to go to this weird planet that has, like, meteors falling from the sky nonstop.
Yeah.
Excuse me, nonstop. Or I'm going to go do Tali's loyalty mission now. I'll come back around to do the rest of the stuff that's on Omega later. That's like, you get those choices at the small level here. Like when you're on a planet, you can say, "Oh, I'm gonna go run around and scan 12 rocks."
Really?
That famous mission.
12 rocks?
The 12 rocks.
It's 19 rocks, and they're spread out across every planet.
No.
And also,
that
they're
sounds
rocks
dope.
they're not just, I hate this quest. So you get a quest that says, like, "Oh, we're here in Andromeda. We got to find out what's rocks like. What are rocks like in the Andromeda galaxy?"
Like?
Fair.
And so you have to go out and start scanning these rocks. The thing is, they're individual certain rocks. They're like, "Oh, that's a rock of platinum," and I know what you're thinking. We have platinum in the Milky Way galaxy.
I was thinking that.
We do. We shouldn't need to scan this new platinum. 2. There are just resources in the world that are just like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna go pick up that platinum." You can't scan those; those don't count for this quest.
What the
you
hell?
need to find the one platinum rock and scan that one, and then you get it, and then you crush it up, and you snort it, and it's Nier. It's like platinum
that's right.
fresh in your brain.
Platinum Automata. Yeah.
Put some platinum in your coffee.
I need some platinum in my coffee. Oh man, I'm like, at this point I'm sticking out Mass Effect as a fan of Mass Effect.
Yeah.
That
If
seems
this was
to
a
be
game-
what a lot of people are treating this game.
and I
I've
think I'm
gotten
gonna
that
write about
vibe from a lot
today.
of folks.
So I will say this, like, I'm now at hour 30, and this is the first time that I have sorry, I just got a calendar update that says Horizon demo, bring Zoom, and somehow I made a calendar update in my calendar in March instead of in January.
You know,
when I first saw Horizon Zero
Maybe you
Dawn.
should go back and play some more Horizon.
Maybe that's what this is
Maybe
telling
that's
me.
what Mass Effect
It
is
hurt
telling
me.
you when you're
It was talking
telling
about AI, and it was like, "No, I have a good AI story. Come play me."
Exactly.
So like, I'm 30 hours in to Mass Effect Andromeda at this point, and there are a few things that stick out as being really high points. I think that one quest was really solid, and like, I think the music has been really strong so
Yeah.
far. I think that the combat is often rewarding, sometimes a slog, because the kind of way that combat encounters are situated are just not that interesting
the
sometimes.
level design isn't that amazing.
Right,
too.
like, it's
Which
just not-
compounds that, I think.
Right, well, and it needs to be good, right? Like, this is the
Yeah.
thing, the difference between, like, Dragon Age Inquisition, which had these big open maps that you would then, like, walk into a place and fight some guys, is that they had encounter design, which meant, like, okay, the thing that's interesting here is that I have to deal with 4 dudes who have armor on, and my party is not equipped to deal with armor, to break the armor down before I can do good damage. Whereas here, it needs more than that. It also does need, like you said, good level design, where, like,
It really
I'm
helps,
encouraged to use my traversal powers. I'm encouraged to flank. And while those mechanics are good, the places that stands out are in these very specific scripted sequences where good level design has created fun spaces to move around and shoot through. It's why the multiplayer works for me still. It's
sure.
like, oh wow, like, people handcrafted these levels to be really fun, to have good sight lines, to, like, give me the feeling of, like, I want to rush, like, from one side of the map to the other so I can save my friend. And, like, that just doesn't happen in single player, like, barely at all. Even when someone gets killed, it's like, oh yeah, they got shot in the middle of a field because they weren't taking cover. Thanks, Jal.
Good job.
Nice. And, like, at this point, it doesn't
PB.
feel... I like PB enough. PB and I just hooked up.
Oh, nice.
It was like a casual thing.
You and PB. I can't get Patricia to
think
hook
I'm
up
gonna-
with PB.
I think I'm going to hook
mad.
up with... You should watch the PB hookup.
All right, I will.
It's pretty good. It's pretty good, and it's, like, pretty pro... Like, it's a pretty mature, like, actual mature
Good.
take on, like, let's just fool around.
That's pretty awesome.
Which was positive.
That's pretty great.
I think I'm going to date Vetra, who is, like,
also
the
a good choice.
Smuggler-torian.
Very good choice. I love
I
her.
think that's who I'm going to marry.
I got a question about the romance in Andromeda.
Yeah.
Is it any different than just if you just hit on them enough, you get to have a
So-
sex?
You get shut down by some people, right? Like,
Okay.
Cora is
Cora
straight.
doesn't
which-
like girls.
Yeah, which is...
It's a little disappointing.
all of the queer women in my life are really upset about
Really not happy about it.
like, for a specific one One, because like Cora is cute, I guess.
She's cute, and she just gives
tough.
off a lot of queer vibes.
So that's the thing.
The thing.
And it's the third time this has happened.
Yeah.
Jack,
Cassandra, I think, is the most extreme.
You don't think
probably.
Jack is the most extreme?
Well, yes, because she actually says
Yeah.
that she likes men and women.
She literally says
She
that.
actually says she's bi.
Yes.
And you cannot have fun with her in such a way.
In such a way.
In such a way.
I mean, she doesn't like
You're
it.
right.
But that's the thing. So the thing that's tough about this is like I do think that there is value in having straight characters.
Of course.
I do like the notion that everyone isn't just bi, even though it's the future and things can change. I don't know what I feel about this. We're on a podcast. Which
I
means
just
everything
wish
we
it
say
was
is
all
contingent.
poly. That's all. Or not
no,
all.
this is the thing is, like,
I
I
wish
think
there
that
were
there is
possibilities for poly relationships in
right,
this game.
Sure. I wish there was
these
possibility for a lot of those things. I think there is. I think it's really complicated with Cora, Cassandra, and Jack.
Yes.
Not complicated. I think it's shitty because those are all characters who draw on queer coding to be cool.
For sure.
Like to present themselves as badass and cool, and then also are not themselves or are not dateable. Like you said, Jack literally is bi.
She is, yeah.
Which all of that's like. It's not secondary necessarily because I think like this is a big part of why people come to these games.
It is.
It's a huge audience for these games, and
Yeah.
something I'm trying to work through is why have I been coming to BioWare games? Like partly it is because like as someone who played like a Quarian dude, I got to romance Cassandra in Dragon Age Inquisition, and that's a really good romance that even engages in some of the interesting complications of like intercultural relationships.
Huh.
There's a great line in it when like you finally commit to dating Cassandra, where she's like, "Listen, like I worry that like not worry like we shouldn't date, but like." 50 years from now, everyone's going to look back at us and say that, like, I was the frail human and you were the big bestial Quarian and that you, like, somehow, like, overpowered me. And that's bullshit. But,
Yeah.
like, we have to be thinking about that all the time. And that sucks. And that's, like, a really, like, oh, wow.
Good that they wrote that. Yeah, exactly.
Get Out's a real movie.
Yeah.
Like, it turns
Yes.
out. So, like, that was really interesting. So there are ways in which I'm really drawn to that aspect of this. And then when I think about the original Mass Effect, I'm not just going to redo the Friday podcast here. I'm going to give space back to Nier and questions and stuff
Yeah,
in a second.
yeah.
I think a lot about what the notion of frontier meant in that game versus in this game.
Yeah.
And I was already like making notes on this, and then Waypoint columnist Cameron Kunzelman says, thoughts regarding your Mass Effect stuff in the podcast on Friday. Get ready for some Cameron Kunzelman ass shit. Ready?
Oh, good.
Mass Effect 1 is actually the frontier, the limited space where the boundaries are being pushed by a non-solidified political assemblage. Thanks, Cameron. Mass Effect Andromeda seems like it's the security state under, like, a Greek system. Here is a world we have to wrangle into one exact political form. And that's, like, completely right and, like, gave me a way of thinking through. So, like, to unpack that a little bit, or, like, translates the wrong word, but, like, Cameron's deep in grad school right now, and when you get deep in grad school, you forget that not everybody else in the world uses words like political assemblage. In Mass Effect 1 and in those early games, it's like, oh wow, I can go to all of these different places, and everywhere I go I find some new weird cultural thing that is itself normalized as being the way things work on that planet, or the way things, like, how they're reflected from some reach out from a corporate planet closer to the core worlds or whatever, or towards the Citadel. Whereas here, every planet you go to, your objective is to fix it. Your objective is to make it good for humans. It's like go in and flip the right switches so that the desert planet that has bad sandstorms loses the sandstorms and gets a bright blue sky.
Right.
You go to the ice planet and you're like, not so much, no more blizzards, please. Make this a place where I can live. Thank you. And sometimes that's even cultural in the sense of, like, I mentioned on Friday that there are really only two alien species, and while their interactions are really interesting, one of the things I really don't like is the ways in which Ryder is the first person in one of those, the first person to, like, unravel this ancient mystery of this one species.
Right.
Like, in a throwaway thing, not even a main, like, plot thing. It's kind of like, oh yeah, I figured this thing out, despite the fact that you were, like, a team of, like, anthropologists
PhDs
working on it
from
for
this
ages.
place. Yeah,
and to some
like-
degree, that's always going to happen in any quest-based game. Like, Geralt is always going to be the one who kills the werewolf. The villagers aren't.
Yeah.
But somehow, when it's all so big, it takes away from it. Like, Shepard often solved really small problems. and like would do a big quest line so that like one scientist was saved or one criminal was killed. Here it feels a lot like I'm coming to bring everything into perfection, and I want it to get more complicated. Now, 30 hours in, it is starting to get more complicated. I finally went to a planet where there were some people who were like, man, fuck the Andromeda Initiative. And like we have good reasons for believing that. And like I'm hoping that this is a turning point. I will report back in probably at the end of the week. But I don't know. I'm still trying to unpack what I get from these.
I'm getting this overwhelming sense, and this might be me totally projecting, so tell me if I'm wrong, but that this is a Mass Effect game made by people who are really tired. I don't know. It's like this weird sense of everything about this game. And to be fair, I like this game. I am enjoying what I'm actually experiencing of it. It just feels like folks who were given a blueprint and they're like, okay, we're going to do our best, but something was off in sort of every aspect of production, and it just feels like I see it in my own work when I get very, very tired. It's like, it's there, I did the thing, and it's there and it's a deliverable, but it's not like gleaming to the degree of like a good, rested and well thought out sort of thing. It just feels tired.
I've been thinking a
ways.
lot about that quote that's been going around about Breath of the Wild. I don't know. I think it was Al-Numa who said it, which was like every time we reached a big milestone, the whole team stopped working and played through the whole game and gave notes on it for a week. And like, I have no idea what BioWare's production schedule is like. No idea what I have some idea. That is not a normal thing. I'm sure that there are some studios who do that, but I wish more studios did that thing.
I mean, that's a blessing, right?
It is.
It's a blessing of budget and time.
Totally. And management and having a timetable that is realistic, but then also one that like someone at Nintendo could have been like, no. Like, we're going to take 2 days off to do this. But they're saying, at least, that they took a week off at every major milestone to play through that game. And, like, I want that to become industry standard so bad.
I know.
So bad. Anyway, that's my Mass Effect check-in. Sorry, you brought up Star Trek, and that was my one way in.
I get it. I could bring up Star Trek every day.
I think we need to reconvene on Friday for the robot AI club and see where we're all at. There's a lot of robots and AI stuff in Mass Effect. I mentioned that before. It's not doing very.
My last thought,
just
yet. On Nier,
please,
and Zelda, is that holy God, have Japanese games been good this year?
What a good year so far for Japanese games.
Jesus, basically.
And Persona's out soon.
Persona's out soon.
I should just really briefly say I've played through the first dungeon of Persona.
Oh, okay.
We've passed like a preview embargo at some point, so I'm allowed to say that. That's a real stylish game.
Oh, good.
That's a real stylish game.
Good.
It immediately starts in on some of the stuff that was maybe uncomfortable about past games. Like, it immediately is like, oh, sexual assault's a thing in the world. And so, but I don't think it doesn't, I don't think it mishandles it. It's just really, it gets intense in terms of the one, like, antagonistic character who, like, it's an interesting entire first dungeon arc. But the core conceit of the game is really brilliant, and it's a really nice flip from past Persona, from Persona 3 and 4 specifically, which were like, oh yeah, we're going to go into this dungeon because XYZ. Like, here, the reason you're getting to the dungeon, like in Persona 3, you were trying to climb this big tower because it was weird and in the middle of town and monsters. And in 4, you're like, oh, we have to go rescue this person. In this one, you're going in to do a heist. You're going in to steal something, and the thing that you're basically doing Inception.
Good.
You're trying to change something in the real world by stealing something inside of this psychological dream world.
Yeah.
And that stuff is handled super well, and it's really charming and stylish. And I need to get back to that game. But I've taken breaks for Zelda and now Nier and Mass Effect, and I don't know. Anyway, shout outs to Japan.
Good job.
And I will say, I would rather live in a world in which Mass Effect Andromeda was like another all-time classic. I will also say, I'm gonna skip playing that for a couple of weeks, and it's kind of nice that I like the relentless pace.
Yep.
I'm allowed to say, okay, do I want to play Andromeda? Yes. Do I feel like that? Like, is my time probably better spent like digging deeper into to Automata? Probably. And it's sort of nice to have that pressure off a little bit. Although I'm not happy that it's at the cost of Automata and Andromeda. Andromeda being as good as a lot of people wanted it to be.
Sure. That's fair.
Yeah. My advice for people who are like torn on Mass Effect Andromeda at this point is to wait a few weeks and then to come to it the way I came to Dragon Age 2 or the way I came to Destiny, which was post first expansion but before Taken King made it like actually really good, which is like have the right expectations, like know what's going on in this game.
Yeah.
Come into it with lower expectations and I promise you'll have a good time or a better time.
Yeah.
I like the reality of it is lots of people are going to buy Mass Effect Andromeda because they like Mass Effect. Also, real fucking briefly, one, there are still goofy animations in that game. Those are not the thing that are taking away from this.
Yeah,
also,
sure.
two, fucking... Can people just chill? Can shitheads on the internet just
Please chill.
Yeah, good luck with that one, Austin.
Please
I
chill,
know.
friends.
I just wanted to like voice support for the people who are on the receiving end of harassment from deeply misguided, ignorant, and hateful people who are going after a former animator from BioWare.
I posted a thread that was like, hey, I want you to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Put down your keyboard. For real. If you feel the need to harass someone over this, just put down the keyboard, take a deep breath, look at your life for a second, know that it's really pathetic to harass people, and know that you don't have to be pathetic. You can totally
That's
be.
not gonna move them.
You don't have to be pathetic. You can do it.
Have to be pathetic.
You can be a decent human being. I promise. It's not that hard. Just take a second.
Just chill.
Take a breath.
Please.
Take a knee if you need to. Just do whatever you got to do to
like
just
work
chill.
through what that anger
Work
is.
through it, man.
Try like really think about why you feel this mad. Where did that start? I don't know.
Just take a breath.
Find someone to talk to about it.
Yeah.
It helps. I used to be shitty. I used to be real shitty. on the
Everybody
internet.
has been shitty.
Anyway,
There are ways through it. There's a path through
support
it.
to those who are on the receiving end of harassment.
Yes.
You can
Always.
find out more about that on twitter.com.
Twitter. It's a place.
Just generally speaking.
It's a place to
generally
work through your
speaking.
shit.
Fuck, man. Anyway, let's turn to the question bucket
Yeah, let's
and
do
see
that.
if there's anything here that's a little more lighthearted.
The question universe.
Yeah.
Andromeda.
Okay. This comes in from Brian in Redmond, Washington, who says, recently, dear Vice Keepers, it's new.
I like that.
Recently, Mirror's Edge Catalyst was $8 on the Xbox Digital Store. I love the hell out of Mirror's Edge Catalyst. I jumped on that game when it came out, tore it apart, and put it back together over the course of 100 hours. They took everything I loved about the first game and enhanced it, excised all the shit I didn't enjoy or didn't care about, and gifted me with an open world that was so fun to move through that I didn't want to fast travel. If I had a platform where it mattered, I would happily give it Game of the Year, edging out The Witness and Cluster Truck. Naturally, watching it come out and just utterly fail distressed me. Did everybody else play a different game? This isn't like David Cage's Mass Effect Andromeda, where a game was just failing to meet the hype. The game came out, I loved it, and nobody else did. Have you ever loved a game that everyone else, or at least a vocal majority, seemed to dislike? Did you feel like you had to hide that opinion like some sort of anti-hipster? Is it normal to question your own value when you prefer something the world at large does not? I think this is an important question as we move into the following weeks of Mass Effect Andromeda, where certainly there will be lots of people who love this game and are living under the constant scorn of people who are just dunking on it.
I can't think of a
ahead,
game that I
Patrick.
had a similar experience to him. I wish I had his experience with Mirror's Edge
Mirror's Edge,
Catalyst, because Mirror's Edge, the original, is one of my favorite games of all time, and I wanted nothing more than to love Catalyst, and it just didn't connect with me.
Right. I mean, I think you and I both love, and you too, Danielle, like lots of games that are, this is the kind of AVB 7 out of 10 thing, right?
Oh,
like
for
games
sure.
that are not necessarily great but are interesting. You might recall that we stayed up playing Alien Isolation together once.
Hell yes.
Which is a game that got kind of shat on by a lot of people.
It was very divisive.
I don't think
like-
that counts as
No?
what he's talking about. Like, Alien Isolation was
Mirror's-
generally a liked game. Like, it might have
Was
been
it?
done. Yes.
Well,
oh, for sure.
Arthur gave it a 6.5 at the time. I was at
Okay,
Polygon.
okay.
And I remember feeling very like, how could you? You know?
It was
So I understand the feelings that this person is having. for
yeah.
sure.
I feel like Mirror's Edge also just mostly got Mirror's Edge Catalyst got like middling scores.
6s and 7s, I think.
Right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, 7.4 Metascore.
Oh, that's actually pretty high.
That's all right,
actually.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like, so maybe that's the first step is, and I've actually run into this a lot over the last couple of weeks while talking about like games like Mass Effect, Horizon, Zelda. Really take note and see if it's true that the thing that you feel is being dunked on is being dunked on. Like, are you really an outlier? Obviously, if you're really into a thing, that is pretty clear that like, oh yeah, I'm way into Mirror's Edge Catalyst in a way that nobody else is. But chances are most other people who played it are like not so far removed from me. There's like, oh yeah, it's okay. It was an okay way to spend 20 hours or whatever, right?
There's also the tendency to hyperbolize, especially if you listen to a lot of gaming podcasts. And I take full blame for this because I certainly do this. But I think a lot of us do engage in hyperbole sometimes. Yeah. Like, it was kind of shitty, or this is the best thing ever. Like, it's something I attempt to work on a little bit, but I know I've been guilty of it, for
Austin,
sure.
I think people are, rightly pointing out that Dragon's Dogma is probably one of these games.
There you go. Dragon's Dogma.
Dragon's Dogma is a great...
Yeah.
That game reviewed very poorly.
People did not like Dragon's Dogma.
No.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I feel like I'm on this end of things fairly often.
The Alpha Protocol is a game that people are pointing out, which is also a great example of that.
Yes.
Also, even in the BioWare canon, Dragon Age 2, probably a great example of a game like that.
Absolutely. People hated Dragon Age 2 for a lot of reasons. And I liked it way more than most. But again, I also recognize the thing that, so here's the second step here is just like, try to recognize what their specific problems were. Most people who don't like a thing, who write about it, have outlined at least a little bit what there was a disconnect for them, right? And so chances are, like, you had a better handle on the, not better, but like you just enjoyed the way it moved around, right? Like, but like try to dig into why that is, right? Like, sometimes it can feel really immaterial and abstract and just like, oh, I just liked it more. But like, try to dig into it a little bit and see what worked for you that didn't work for other people. That will, in the long run, just help you find better games, more games for you to like.
Yeah, like why does Austin Walker like a bad game like Dark Souls 2? Like, we're still not sure. Like, we haven't quite figured it out.
0 people have liked Dark Souls 2 except for me. It's true. Well, like but that's totally fair for me. So like
we've talked about this privately. I think we're like, I, as someone that gives no shits really for like the general lore of Souls, like I'm there specifically for like the game part of it. And that's I don't want to say that like the lore isn't part of it. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm there for like the boss encounters. Like there's something very specific that I'm there for, and the lore is like is very tangential to my experience of that. And I found Dark Souls 2 to be profoundly disappointing from that angle. And then when we've talked about it, you find Dark Souls 2 to be like the most interesting from like a lore perspective, which is a lot of what you find fascinating about it.
Just like a thematic angle more than even just like specific lore notes. Like, it's not just like, oh, hey. I mean, part of it is lore. Part of it is like it did kind of cement the notion that there was something cyclical happening here, that things were happening again and again. It also, one of the things that having to work through this did for me is like, oh, people really love that in Dark Souls 1, everything is like firmly connected, like a little clockwork device where like you can be in Firelink Shrine and kind of see and understand how everything connects clearly. And it didn't have that effect on me. Like that didn't move me much at all. And that at that point you don't need to dig deeper. Like I don't need to start doing a special second therapy just for why I don't necessarily love the clockwork world of Dark Souls 1. Like, oh, I just don't, that just doesn't speak to me in the way. But you can even go a little further, which is like in Dark Souls 2, one of the things I do like is the breadth of potential spaces there in terms of like it feels like a wide world instead of a tall world, and that works for me even when it's like nonsensical. Like, dog, I'm throwing lightning bolts. Like, I'm okay with Harvest Valley turning into like the weird Iron King place. Like, I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah,
like. Everything is timey-wimey in the words of the Bonfire Side chat podcast.
Good
I'm totally fine with that stuff. So, like, digging into why you like a thing more can be really fruitful. Just like try to recognize that you don't need to go to bat for something. Obviously, I feel like it's hard to like not do that sometimes.
When you're passionate about something, it's hard to not.
But it
Showtime.
helps you to be able to have what that argument is, and also pick your battles on that. Like I don't go to bat for Dark Souls 2. That's not a fun thing. It's not a fun conversation.
It's not a fun battle.
Because just people are like, no, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong.
That's
and, like,
that's
also,
me in our Discord chat all day.
Here's the difference between you and your Discord chat, in our Discord chat, and people on the internet is you just say it once. People on the internet, I'll be, oh yeah, I really like Dark Souls 2, and then it's like 300 responses underneath of people not reading any of the other response threads. Fuck.
Yeah.
Anyway. Yeah, Shoehead notes that Dark Souls 2 is actually spacey-wacy. Dark Souls 1 is timey-wimey. is timey-wimey. Thank you. Let's get one more question in from the old question bucket. Let's see here. Okay. There's a really long one about the synthesis ending of Mass Effect. So
Oh, God. Okay, yeah.
Green. Go green,
okay.
baby.
Here we go.
You sound fully confident.
Yeah, this is actually interesting. I think, Patrick, I'm really curious what you're going to say about this based on a piece that you had go up over the weekend. This comes in from Maria. Apologies for pronouncing that wrong. It's Mariya, which like phonetically looks like it's Maria.
Yeah.
Hey, Austin, Danielle, Patrick, Danica, Rob, and the rest of the Waypoint crew. Mass Effect Andromeda has been so far skewered by fans and non-fans alike. It's also attracted a lot of hate for its creators. I'm a big fan of the series, and I want Mia to be good. I want Mass Effect Andromeda to be good. I also want to express... Sorry, I just realized... At some point, if EA ever writes an apology for the way it was at launch...
Mea culpa.
Mea culpa. M-E-A culpa.
I want to point out that Austin did that and not me.
That
Even
was
though
the
I thought of
deck
it, but I
writer,
saw it.
The headline writer in me.
saw it right
It's
there.
like, boom, we need to write that
Saw
down.
it. You hurt Patrick.
I'm a big fan of the series. I want Mass Effect Andromeda to be good. I also want to express my disappointment in the game. It feels like adding fuel to a fire. Do you think it's wrong to criticize games with large hate followings? Doesn't goodwill criticism get lost in the maelstrom? At this point, whenever I retweet bad animations, I just feel like a bully. What do you
Such
guys
a
think?
good question.
Yeah.
This is something I've felt very, very, very strongly, even more broadly about, like, hey, somebody who's in the world of games who maybe has opinions about things and gets hatred for their opinions. Maybe I don't agree with all their opinions.
Yeah.
What do I say about that? What do I say about all these kinds of things? So yeah, this is a really, 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 really important question that I think it is important to offer your criticism, offer your fair opinion, but also do it really carefully in this case. Like, as with a lot of things, if you're putting it out online, if you're actually, sort of putting yourself out there online, think really hard and critically about, maybe don't just retweet like a stupid
shitty
animation or something.
Yeah.
Maybe say, hey, there's things I like here, there are things that I find disappointing here. Let's talk specifically and critically about this.
Don't be afraid to leave Twitter behind and write this.
Yes. Also put this in a place that's not just 140 characters. That's also a huge part of it.
Yeah, well, I think like part of the motivation for the story that I wrote over the weekend that was like trying to more closely and critically examine like at what point did the discussion around Andromeda move from like politely dunking on a game that people were excited and had some animation issues to like a certain viciousness like that.
Yeah.
That just like felt off-putting. Like it didn't like it's that exact sort of like moral arc or ethical arc that you were talking about, Danielle, of like, okay, the first one that I retweeted that someone added a funny meme to, like, hey, we're just all having some fun. We're excited for this game. It's got a goofy walking glitch. Like, ha ha ha. Like, that's fine. And then at a certain level, like, it just felt like people were, that snowballed into, like, well, fuck this game. And fuck BioWare, and like fuck the people that worked on this game. And there was a viciousness that felt deeply uncomfortable because the place that the commentary, the animations, the dunking was coming from was not from a place of like, let's have some fun with a game that we're all excited about. It was like it was mean, and it was angry, and it was like a different part of the internet that was building upon itself because people were getting a lot of retweets and likes and favorites and reblogs on this stuff, and so like the cycle builds on top of itself. And I think also you see this in harassment. Like it doesn't excuse it, but I think I think you can within people, like certain folks that are going in and saying horribly misogynistic and horribly racist things, like they may not be necessarily motivated by actually being those. That may not be in their heart of hearts. Doesn't excuse what they say, but they know that they can get attention and join a chorus that makes them feel good because they are part of a group,
which
and
is its own like sort of misogyny and
yes,
like which is like, oh, I don't prioritize this other person's like quality of life because they're a woman. I'm allowed to just dunk on them. Of course, women are equal, but
But
and
this
that
is different.
always ugh, it's a lot to unpack. It's a lot to unpack. Or the other thing that happens a lot too is like the person who joins in because they see a big group doing something and are like, yeah, this game does look fucked. Yeah, the people who are saying it's fucked, they're just telling the truth. They're just telling the truth. You gotta hear both sides, man. And like, or like I've had a guy in Twitter in my mentions,
your mentions,
my new podcast about things people tweeted at me this week.
in my mentions.
In my mentions. That's kind of a good name.
That is pretty good, actually.
I like that.
Can we remove this from the pod? Don't share that name.
We gotta use this.
There's been a person who's just like, oh, well, it was regular BioWare didn't make this. This was not BioWare didn't make this game. Like,
Wait, conspiracy BioWare
right?
made this game?
Indoctrination theory. Sovereign.
This game was made in Russia in a secret lab in Novaria. Like, just like, what the fuck?
I've seen some. Rachel Maddow has all of.
She has it all. She has all the missives.
Shout out to Rachel Maddow.
There was a really wonderful, and this was something in my mentions this weekend that was actually really fantastic and tied into a lot of this. And it was from it was like, it's called Untrolling. It's from.
I don't know.
I'll find the link. We can put it in the show notes.
Sure.
But it is Dylan Marin, who does a video series where he actually talks to trolls who have trolled him on his videos.
Around, yes.
And this was like a 10-minute long video, anonymized the voice, so there's no possibility of this person being trolled.
Sure.
But like actually reached out to someone who trolled him using homophobic remarks and all sorts of stuff. And it sounded like this was a kid because he talks about going to school and things like that. And they had like a real actual heart-to-heart about like what it is to troll someone, what it is to bully someone, what it is to dogpile in this fashion, basically. And they had an actual incredibly productive and respectful conversation where the person on the other end said, like, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. Like, now I've talked to you, I know you're a real person, and that's a huge part of this. It's like actually seeing people as real human beings and not just like a name on the internet I can dunk on and ruin their life kind of thing. I think that's worth watching for anything around harassment and around the ways in which social media have empowered harassment in certain ways.
Totally. So briefly from the chat, people are pointing out, it was the new BioWare Montreal studio that did this. One, that includes the previous...
Not BioWare Novaria.
Not BioWare Novaria in Russia, which you just invented.
In Russia, in Siberia.
One, it does include the previous lead writer of Mass Effect 3 is on this team. So it's not like there's no continuity. And two, by the end of production, every single BioWare studio was involved with this. BioWare Austin was involved. BioWare Alberta, or not, Edmonton was involved. It was a very big group of their entire, their whole studio system was involved. Not as big as Ubisoft, not thousands and thousands of people, but if you check the credits of this game, there is clear continuity with the previous games. And so it's important not to, we joke about the, Russia thing. There isn't a silver bullet for why a game is fucked, right?
Absolutely.
There isn't a single person on the team who would make something bad outside of, if a manager... stole a bunch of money and bounced. Do you know what I mean?
He just took the animation budget and just
right. That would fuck you over. Right, exactly. But everything passes through a bunch of people. There is QA. There is oversight.
Problems with games are systemic. This speaks to something we were discussing a couple of weeks back about the lack of actual information of how games are made. When a game has an issue like this, where it's the animation seems off, there is a quick desire to vilify someone for that that problem. And
Right.
like in this case, not only did they misidentify people who were even associated with that problem, but that even if they had identified people who worked on the animation on Mass Effect Andromeda, like the issues that has are systemic, deep, and go far beyond an individual team or team leader. Like the way these games are made these days, it would probably be impossible to pinpoint it to a single person, and the desire to find and string up a single villain while I'm not sympathetic to the people that are going to do that. It is understandable to look for faces to blame things on rather than just the faceless BioWare, because emotionally that's what we look for. But it also does speak to our lack of understanding of how games are made, that you could see, lead animator, and then be like, ha, we solved it. Granted,
their fault.
Granted,
Yeah.
I even if we lived in a world where we had a better understanding of that, or people even wanted to understand that, they would still seek out a single person and use that to dogpile on. So I don't think solving one solves the other. I think both still exist, even with additional information available. But it would help.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a start, right? Like, you know what it might do is it might take some of the people out of the equation who do the piling on.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like prevent it from snowballing in this way.
Yeah.
I don't know. It can be tough to be in this space and like wanting to write about how cool a game is, or like the question asker, what Maria said, which was like having criticism for a game like this and then like needing to frame those such that it's really clear that like you're not happy with the final product, but also please don't dox this woman or this
Absolutely.
brown guy. Like,
Which is
don't do that.
Insane that it has to be that way,
Right.
but that is the terrible future that we live
And
in.
it's just tough to just be like, man, like, is this where we're fucking still at?
Yeah.
And yeah, we still are.
We are.
So we've been here forever, and we are going to keep struggling to make this place a little bit better.
Keep fighting
I
that
guess.
good fight.
Yeah,
That's what I'll say.
Exactly. I don't know. The fucking Pathfinder hasn't had to deal with any trolls.
I know, right?
That would help.
Maybe we just need to go to Andromeda.
This is the thing. This is the problem. You don't get to go to a new place and like, there are no trolls there.
I know.
Like,
There's a lot of rocks, though.
a lot of
Maybe
rocks
there's
you
some
can
trolls
stand.
under those rocks, Austin.
Okay. That's a stretch. I'm not even mad at you because it was just such a bad stretch. That's going to do it for us.
Do you think
I
that there's a quest, like if you look under those rocks, you can find out the secret of the 3 Africans?
Oh, maybe.
I'm going to end this podcast. I'm ending it right now. I'm Austin Walker. You can find me on Twitter at Austin_Walker. Danielle, where can people find you?
You can find me at Danielle R.I.
Patrick Klepek.
on Twitter.
You can find me banned on Twitter at Patrick Klepek.
You are banned on Twitter. Tim Barnes, you can find at Tim Barnes451 on Twitter. He's our producer. Shout outs to Tim Barnes. Dylan is not on Twitter, probably. Dylan, are you on Twitter?
Dylan's not on
shaking
Twitter,
his
but he's
head.
still great.
He's great. Shout outs to Dylan. Shout outs also to Bowen, who lets us use his song Miss You off the EP Pale Machine. You can find out more info about that at waypoint.zone/BOEN. You can find everything we do at Waypoint at waypoint.zone, waypoint.vice.com, digitalpyramids.com, etc., etc., etc. Someone is walking around our set right now. I don't
Probably
know.
ready to take over.
Ready to take
ready
over.
to pounce.
It's going to be a week of robots here. Like, that's
Yeah.
not a theme. I didn't just spring this
It's
on
not
you.
Robot Week. There's just a lot of robots
Welcome
around
to
us.
Robot Week.
Can you do it like a... That was so good.
That was the sounds robot makes.
That was a really good
That's the
robot
first time I ever made that sound effect. That was just in my heart. I let it out.
It was in your mech heart.
My mech heart just unfolded and revealed a second mechanical heart.
Oh my god.
So tune in. On Friday, we'll come back and have more thoughts about this stuff. As always, you can find us here on twitch.tv/waypoint, and you can find archives of the streams we do. Not these streams that we do. We might change that
All the
soon.
other
We'll see.
ones,
But all
though.
the other ones at youtube.com/waypointvice. Thanks for sticking with us. We'll be back on Friday. Peace.